Okay, so today's segment is going to be all about moving through the holidays in grief. And this has been a really tough one for me. Every time I go to shoot this video, I start to cry aggressively, and I'll explain why. But I am going to do my best to power through today. If it's an emotional one, I do apologize. I just hope that y'all can kind of find some way to relate, or hopefully you get something from it that allows you or helps you get through the holidays if you're dealing with some grief right now. So I haven't talked too much about people that I've lost or anything, so I am gonna kind of go into that. My dad and I, just a little bit of a backstory, I guess, were estranged for almost 20 years, and we reconnected about 8 years ago, and we had built this beautiful relationship together, and we had amazing times together, amazing moments. He didn't live real close, so we both had to travel to see each other. But he really got to know my son, and we really got to know each other as adults, with me being an adult. And last year, June of 2018, he was diagnosed June 1st with stage 4 simple cell cancer in his lungs. And at the time, the doctors only gave him 6 months to live. So last year at Christmas, he was very sick. He shouldn't have been here at Christmas, according to the doctors, but he was. And he flew into my town and him and his wife, and they spent 12 days here. And he just was really sick, and it was really hard to watch him be so weak when he was such a large man to me. And I just, watching him lie there and sleep last year at Christmas. He slept a lot of the time that he was here. I was thankful he was in my space. I was thankful that he was present and he was able to be here with Parker and I. But it was hard. He looked so small to me, and I realized, that this disease had gotten him. And so when he left, I knew that hug was it. I knew that was the last time I was going to see him. And so saying goodbye to him in that moment was really tough. And that was, he went home on January 3rd. And I remember hugging him, and he was, in his jeans and his leather coat, because my dad was a person who always needed to, if he was flying, he was very adamant about looking good when he was flying. I remember him telling me when I started to fly around the world in regards to work, he's like, you always have to dress nice. Like, you can't be in sweatpants when you're flying. And every part of me is like, but I want to be in sweatpants when I'm flying. Anyway, so he was dressed quite lovely, and I hugged him that day, and I just knew in my very soul, I knew. And I feel like when we're losing somebody to an illness, we kind of just know when the last time is. And so he went home, and then he went back to his doctor, and they just said unfortunately it's gone to his brain. And he at that point they weren't expecting him to have very much longer. And he had asked me to come and visit, and I just said to him, Dad, I can't. I need to remember you in that hug. I can't see you deteriorate, because it's too hard. Like, no one wants to see anyone they love sick. And so I didn't go back and see him. And my dad chose medical assist in death. And he said his line in the sand was when he couldn't get out of his bed and go to the bathroom on his own. He wanted to pass in his own, still with dignity and pride. And, he chose his date, and that was June 2nd of this year. And that was hard for me, because of what I do, because of how strong I am in my faith. And I always say, when your number's up, your number's up, whether you pull the trigger yourself or you don't. And in that moment when he chose his date, I prayed that God would show me that he has a hand in this, so that when I do say things like, when your number's up, your number's up, that we don't get a say in that the big man upstairs has 100% control over that. And so as we were going through this process, My dad chose June 2nd, which was a year and 1 day after he was diagnosed. I think kind of as his final kiss my ass. No one's going to tell me when I'm going to go. I'm going to pick my day. And so originally, like I said, they said 6 months, and he lived a year and 1 day. And so when you pick your day, you actually get to pick your time too, which I thought was very strange. And that's when I really started to pray, because I felt like, oh, how do you pick your time? Like, that's so weird to me. And so I just prayed that God would show me that he was in control of the situation. And so long story short, June 2nd, came, and I had a beautiful conversation with my dad. Probably the hardest conversation I've ever had with anybody in my life. Knowing that was the last time I was going to hear his voice. And so we said our goodbyes, and I think we said everything we needed to say. You know, I go back and I replay that conversation over and over and over in my head, and I think we said everything we needed to say. I would give anything to talk to him again, face to face. I talk to him every day. Anyway, so we chatted at about 1 p.m, and the time he had picked was 5 p.m, and he was in BC, so that's 6 p.m. my time. And so that day was a weird day. You know, you just kind of go through the motions, waiting for the call, just waiting for the call from his wife that, you know, he had passed. And at 5 o'clock our time, forgetting that they were in BC, I did a prayer and, you know, just prayed for him. And then I realized I still had another hour, and that was hard. But I, you know, went through that next hour, and I just, you know, I talked a lot with God, and I just prayed that, you know, he showed me that he had a hand in this. And I hadn't heard from Donna, who is my dad's wife, and now it's 8 o'clock our time, and then it's 9 o'clock our time. Finally at 9:15 my phone rang, and this is 9:15 p.m, and she said he passed about half an hour ago. And she said, Kelly, it was the most peaceful passing ever. And the doctor actually said to him, or to her, that he's never seen anybody go that fast in that way. It can take, you know, some time once they administer the meds. And he was gone within 5 minutes. And so he knew it was time for him to go. But it was funny because, you know, 5 o'clock, my dad was, you know, needed to be in control. He was very much that type of man. And at 5 o'clock, the doctors got there earlier, and the nurses and stuff, and the nurse went to administer the IV, and she couldn't find a vein, and so then they had to call the anesthesiologist, and the anesthesiologist was in surgery, so it took him a while to get there. And so in that moment, when I found out that he didn't die right at 5 p.m, I knew God had a play in this, and I just thanked him for showing me that, because it was really hard for me to accept that, you know, that was his way of going. And so I'm thankful that God showed me that he very much was in control. So I give him many thanks in that moment. So once Donna had phoned me and told me that my dad was gone, I felt something that, you know, I've lost a lot of people in my life, and a lot of people that I love that are very, very, very close to me. But losing a parent is different. And, you know, I do readings for people who lose parents, or, you know, who have lost children. And I can't imagine what that feels like. But losing a parent, it was just a different feeling. And it was like, part of you is gone. That part that you are like, I'm him. Like I'm half him. Like he is, you know, and there's so many things about him, and I'm thankful that we got to reconnect in the time that we did, and as closely as we did. I'm honored to have had that time with him. So I am very grateful for that. Now, as Christmas comes, anybody who knows me knows that Christmas is my favorite time of year. I set up my Christmas tree November 15th. I keep it up till January 15th. no part of me, like if I could keep it, I've always said if I can keep a Christmas tree up all year round, I will change the decorations on it, I would. And if I'm being honest, I don't have a single Christmas decoration up in my house right now. And, my son said to me, Mom, it feels weird having Christmas this year without Grandpa. And it just, he's like, I don't really want to just put up a big tree. Like, we should go get just like a Charlie Brown tree, or, like, let's just hang the stockings. Do we even have to have a tree? And it hurts me for my son that he feels that way. And it hurts me for me. And the thing that I'm realizing is that, yes, I am a medium, and yes, I do spiritual healings, and I help people get through this kind of grief process every day. And I've realized through all of this, especially in the last few weeks coming into Christmas, shockingly, I am a human. And that's really hard for me to admit. And I don't mean that I'm a human. Obviously, I'm a human. I'm sitting here talking to you. But I mean that I sit so high in my spiritual level and my energy level that I don't often feel what people feel, because I allow myself to heal and grieve rather quickly, because I go, I put my faith in God, and I put my trust into my spiritual world. So it doesn't matter what I'm going through day to day. I just, that's kind of how I heal, and that's how I bring people to healing and to feeling peace. And what I've realized is it doesn't matter how many times I sit in my spiritual world or in that energy field, I'm still in a lot of pain. And I don't believe in anger. I don't believe in that emotion. I think that anger is what we put out when we fear being vulnerable, or I think that our deeper emotion is beyond something of anger. So often when we give anger, or we're mad about something, it's because we're actually hurt, or we're disappointed, or we're feeling sadness. And so I don't like to use the word angry, but I'm just sad. And I'm hoping that by doing this video blog that it will help me heal and get through Christmas, and it will help anybody who's suffering in this time to know that you're not the only one out there. And I don't for any moment think that I'm the only person that's grieving or going through this. And I don't feel like I'm going through it alone. I have a ton of support. I just have a hard time explaining how I'm feeling, because as a spiritual healer, I feel like I should just be able to heal. And I don't understand why I can't, or why I'm not able to yet. And maybe it's because it's my dad. I don't know. Maybe it's because I felt cheated out of time with him. Maybe it's because I'm aching for my son. I don't know. So as I go through this video blog, I'm hoping to, be able to talk through it with all of you, and have you all maybe hear me, or maybe together we can get through this. I do think, it's hard because I went through my birthday this year 6 weeks after he had passed, and he would always phone me first thing in the morning. I was born very early in the morning, and so he would always phone me first thing in the morning. And I think this year for my birthday, I was still a bit numb. And now that we're 6 months later, I'm really feeling it. And I think it's okay for me to feel it. And I tell my clients that all the time, you need to feel the emotion. You need to feel that sadness and that grief, and you need to go through it one day at a time. And I believe I'm doing that. It's just hard for me and it's not that I feel like I can't. It's just that I feel like maybe I should get through it faster, and I know that's only me putting it on me. There's no one out there that says, well, you're a medium, so you should not feel anything and you should be fine. But I guess maybe that's my own ego putting that on me, or it's my own, I'm going to go with ego putting it on me, my human person putting it on me, that, and I just don't want anybody to ever think, any of my clients or my supporters or anybody in my world that knows me, I just don't want anybody to think that I don't ever feel anything. And And to be very honest and to speak my truth, I can tell you that this pain, it hurts. It hurts and it sucks. And every part of me as a human wants to throw a temper tantrum and stomp my feet and say, I want him back, and this is unfair, and all of those things, and be really like mad. And then I sit with it and I say, I'm thankful that he went in peace. I'm thankful he didn't end up in a coma. I'm thankful that he got to make so many choices and decisions and he had full control right up till the end. I'm thankful I had that last conversation with him and that I wasn't just talking to someone who was lying in a bed. I'm thankful for so many things, but yet it still hurts. And I want to put up my big Christmas tree and I want to decorate my stairway and I want to, do all of those things. And I know he'd want me to do that, but it's almost like I can't physically do it. I went into my garage to pull out my tree the other day and I just crumbled. And it was like, okay, today's not the day. That's okay. Take your time. It'll be okay. And I just sat there and I said, Dad, I know this isn't what you'd want. And I know, but I also want to say to him, then give me the strength to get through it. I need to know you're here. And it's funny because I will tell everybody how their loved ones come to them, in butterflies or birds, or it was this person that flickered this light, or, all of those things. And those things happen to me. And my human ego kicks in and goes, well, that was just coincidence that my garage door moved when I was crumbling to the ground and not wanting to grab my Christmas tree. And I know that's my dad saying, I've got you. So I go in the garage every day, hoping that one day the Christmas tree will come into my house. Sorry. And at this point, the Christmas tree hasn't come into my house. I have a little Christmas tree that Parker and I might just choose to put up. My dad has given me an ornament every year. So to look at those and go through that, I'm not ready. And, I read a thing that said, as I was about to do this video blog, I found this saying list of things about grieving at Christmas and the rules of grieving at Christmas. And I read it and was like, wow, that's pretty profound. And the number one rule is, yes, I'm grieving. And at this point, I don't know what my Christmas is going to look like. And I'm fully entitled to feel this way. The second rule was, I don't have to feel guilt if I want to hide at Christmas or if I choose to do Christmas differently than what we normally do. The third rule was, it's my grief and I'm allowed to change the rules. And so right now, Parker and I both kind of are stomping our feet and we are kind of digging our heels in, and I'm trying to get my son through this, which is also really hard because as he sits there and cries about Grandpa, I am mom and I'm being strong for him and trying to get him through it when every part of me wants to fall apart. And then there's times where he's holding my hand as I'm falling apart, and we kind of get each other, we got each other, that's my little dude. And so it's hard in those moments to watch him go through that. And I'm sure it's hard for him to watch me go through it. But we all grieve differently, and we all have a right to grieve the way that we grieve. No one can tell us how to grieve. So whether you've lost a parent or a grandparent or a child or a brother or a sister or anybody that you care about, a friend, it doesn't always have to be a relative. You're allowed to grieve, and you're allowed to grieve however you'd like to grieve. And if grieving is sitting and crying, you're allowed to do that. And if there's days you don't want to get out of bed because you're sad, you're allowed to do that. And, this is something I'm learning because I've always just said you have to one foot in front of the other. You have to be strong through this. You have to do this. You have to do this. And when I read that thing about it's my grief and I get to change the rules whenever I want, my rules can change and my grief can change and what that looks like. it was kind of an aha moment, because it was like, you know what, today I'm going to do this video and I'm going to cry, as I have already. And you know what, in the beginning of this video, I said, I'm sorry if I get emotional. And I want to take that back, because I'm not sorry. I don't have to apologize for being sad. And no one has to apologize for being sad. We don't have to apologize for being happy. We don't ever have to apologize for showing our emotions. And that is one thing that I really want to express today, is don't apologize for something you're feeling. So long as you're feeling it true and authentically, you don't ever have to apologize for it. And you're allowed to go through whatever emotion it is. And it might not even be the loss of somebody to death. You might be going through the loss of a relationship, or something might have happened and you might be disconnected from people, and you're just feeling a little bit lonely or lost. You're allowed to feel those things. I'm feeling it because of grief, because of the loss of my dad. I'm very thankful, because, there's many times that I apologize for crying or being sad. And I apologize to my son, and I apologize to my partner. And my partner always says to me, you don't ever have to feel sorry for being sad. Like, please feel this and just know that I've got you, and I can here with you through this. No, I don't know what you're feeling. No, I don't know what you're going through, but I'm here, and you don't ever have to apologize. And when he said that to me, it was kind of profound, because I've always felt like I needed to, one foot in front of the other, just be the strong person. You'll get through it. It's fine. And so to know that I can be authentic with him and true to him, I tend to feel bad, because when I'm sad, my energy levels are low. And so I don't ever want to bring him down. And he's, made it very clear that I don't in those moments. And he's been very supportive. So to him, I am very thankful. I say that often to him, but just, to say that out loud, that he's been my guiding light through this. So thanks, babe. Super appreciate it. So I don't want to apologize for being sad or showing emotion. I don't want to apologize for wanting to throw a temper tantrum. I don't feel like I'm old enough to have lost a parent. And I know that, there's people out there that lose parents much younger than I have. But I kind of feel like I'm only 8, because I only had the last 8 years. And I realized that I'm 40. But I didn't get much time with him. The time I got, I'm very thankful for. The person that I saw, the conversations we had, the things I learned, I'm so blessed and so thankful for. The time he got with my son, I'm very thankful for. He was my son's superhero. My son looked up to him so much, and it was nice to see that connection between the two of them. So I am blessed and very thankful. What I can tell you is don't take any day for granted. I've said this before. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. My dad was very sick, and I watched him deteriorate, and it was awful. I'm thankful I had that last year with him, and that he didn't go just overnight or quickly, that I got that time with him, and that I got that last conversation with him. It doesn't make it easier. Whether they go overnight, or all of a sudden they're just gone and they're not there, or you have a year to watch them deteriorate and get off everything off your chest you need to get off and talk to them. I don't know that one's easier than the other. I've been through both, and I don't know which one's harder. So having said that, like I say, I'm thankful that I got that extra time with him. But I still want to stomp my feet and throw a temper tantrum, because I want more time. There's things I don't know. I wanted more time. And I guess as I go through Christmas, and I'm hoping that tonight when I get home from teaching, that I will be able to set up the little Christmas tree that we have, and, do it happily with Parker. He's very sick right now, so today might be the day for us to do it, because he's not feeling great. And so it'll at least be like, we'll just do it and go through it, and then we can just relax, because he's not feeling well. But I pray for strength, because I don't want my son to miss out on Christmas, even though he doesn't want to do Christmas either. I just pray for strength that we'll together be able to get through it, and we can support each other and help each other through it. And, I have family. I'm not disregarding the rest of my family. I have an amazing brother, and I've got, his whole family, his kids and a wife, and I've got my mom, and, I've got cousins and family and friends, so I'm not alone, and I don't want anybody to think that I disregard the rest of my family. It just feels different this year because my dad's not here and it's the first, and the first where I can feel it. Like I said, my birthday, I was still numb. First Father's Day was only 10 days after he passed, so it didn't really register with me. I think next year's Father's Day will be a little bit harder. Shortly after Christmas is my dad's birthday. So those are the things that I, anticipate a bit. But Christmas is tough. And, I send each and every one of you love and peace and strength that are going through grief, and whether your grief is new or your grief is 50 years old. I say to people often, I don't know that, they say time heals all wounds, and I don't agree with that statement. I think that when you've suffered a loss that has, rocked your soul, I think that you just learn every day to kind of live with the pain. So it just becomes part of who you are, and you learn every day. It's not that it gets easier, it's just your body gets, and your mind and your soul get used to having that empty space. And so each day gets a bit easier because you just get more and more used to it. And it doesn't get easier because you're healing, it just gets easier because your body and mind and soul just get used to living with that missing piece. And so as time goes on, I'm feeling more because I believe I'm feeling more because it's more of a reality, and we're, like I say, we're coming up to firsts. And Christmas was, like I say, it's a big deal for me. It's a very wonderful time for me. I love Christmas. And this year I'm not loving Christmas. And it makes me a bit sad because every part of me wants to still love it. And, maybe this year we just need to do it a little bit more simply. And it's not about the tree. It's in my house, it's never been about the presents around the tree. Christmas to me has always been about family and spending time with family, and in whatever capacity that looks like. But I feel like this year, one step at a time, one day at a time. Sometimes it's 1 minute at a time. I won't apologize for that. And I won't apologize for being human. I also won't apologize for feeling, because I think it's important. I also think it's important that all of my clients know that I'm still a human. And, as much as I am so blessed and honored that I get to help people and heal people and bring people through their grief and through those moments, honored, blessed to be able to do that. I think my clients also need to know that even though this is what I do for a living, that I still feel. And sometimes I think I put myself into a superhero space, and I don't mean that in an arrogant way at all. I mean that in the sense that so many people look at me, and I have so many people that say to me on a daily basis, like, you've changed my life, you've changed my grieving process, you've brought me so much peace, you've helped me heal. And I'm honored by all of those things. And so sometimes I feel like maybe I shouldn't feel the way that I feel, and I don't. Again, that's on me, not on anybody else. I own that 100%. I own that. I know that that's on me. And I take accountability and responsibility for that, because, like I say, nobody's ever said, well, you shouldn't heal or you shouldn't feel anything. Like, you have the ability to connect, so just, like, get over yourself. No one's ever said that to me. No one's ever made me feel this way but me. And I think that's why I felt I needed to do this, is so that, people realize that even though that's what I do for a living, I also still feel. And so if you're going through something, or you just want to talk, or you want to just, talk about your loved ones, we're allowed to talk about them. There's going to be times where I want to talk about my dad all the time and I tell funny stories. And then there's times where the thought of him destroys me. And it doesn't destroy me because I'm like a bad memory. It destroys me because I just would give anything to have him back. I'm thankful that I have so many funny memories with him in the last 8 years. I'm thankful that, we got to have a lot of laughs. My dad and I never traveled together. I would go to his house, he would come here, but we never did like a family travel together. And that's one thing that I kind of regret. I know he really wanted to, and I couldn't make it happen at the time. Sorry, there's things falling off my eaves trough. At this point, I'm just going to do one of these. Thanks, Dad. I hear you. But I know now, like, if I choose to take my son on a vacation, or if I'm just on a vacation, whether it's with my mom or my brother, if Ryan and I go away, I know that my dad's there. I'm sad that I didn't get to experience that with him in a personal form, but I know that my dad loved to fish. And so I know anytime I go deep sea fishing, or if, I take Parker down to the river and teach him how to fish this summer, which is my plan, my dad will be there. And I know all of those things. And I know that he is, the black cat that comes and sits on my front porch that I refuse to feed. My dad used to, and his wife used to, and still do. She still does. They have this little cat house on their front porch, and they always put food out, and there's a litter box, and there's always water and warm milk and treats. And they would bring in all the stray cats to this place, and one of their stray cats ended up becoming a house cat. My dad loved cats, and I remember saying to my dad before he went, please don't come to me as a bird. Most of my loved ones come to me as birds, and they think it's really funny because I'm petrified of birds. So they don't just like sit on my balcony and chirp at me, they dive bomb me. And I said to my dad, please don't be another bird. And he started to laugh, and he was petrified of birds as well. So he was like, I will not become a bird. Perfect. And then I said to him, don't become a cat. I'm not feeding the wild stray cats. And I'm not kidding you. The day that he passed, there was this black and white cat in my backyard teasing my dog. And my dad loved my dog. Teasing my dog. This cat was teasing my dog. And every once in a while I go out front, and he'll be sitting on my front porch. And I believe that's my dad, playing jokes on me, because that's kind of who my dad was. He was very funny. But I say to him, give me something bigger. I want more. And I say this to my clients a lot. You ask for signs, you ask for symbols, and they come to you. And they do. And like I say, sometimes it's, when I'm sitting there screaming at him in my garage because I don't have the strength, or the want, or the strength is the word I'm going to use, to put my own Christmas tree up because I'm missing him so much. And my garage door shifts. And by shifts, I don't mean it just like makes a noise like some wind hit it. I mean it went up and came back down. I was nowhere near the button. I know that was my dad. I know it was. With every ounce of who I am, I know it was. It doesn't make it easier. So I don't want to run this video on for hours. I could sit here and talk about my dad for hours, and that's not what I want to do. But I just want each and every one of you to know that you get to make the rules of your grief, and it doesn't matter what other people around you think. And everybody grieves differently. My brother will grieve differently than myself. My niece and my nephew will grieve differently than my son. My mom will go through grief with this because this was the father of her children. My dad's wife Donna will go through different stages of grief. His stepchildren will go through different stages of grief. Neither one right nor wrong. But I think that when we're grieving and it's holidays, it's hard. And it's hard because we always just, as a society, it's like, put a smile on your face, everything's fine. And I just want to, put it out there that it's okay not to be okay. And it's okay to be sad. And it's okay to have days. And it's okay to one day be fine and the next day not be fine. And don't feel that because you have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or a month of days where you're okay and then all of a sudden you fall apart, that's unacceptable. You are allowed to go through this. And there's going to be days for the rest of my life, and it might be when Parker gets married or graduates or has his own children, and that might trigger me by not having my dad there. When I teach Parker how to fish, that was one thing my dad always wanted to do, was teach Parker how to fish, and he never got the opportunity. So I promised Parker this summer I'm going to teach him how to fish with my dad's fishing rods that he has left to my son. So I am going to do that. And in those days, it's okay if we cry. And we don't have to apologize. And we don't have to pretend. And I just want each and every one of you to know that it's okay not to be okay. And it's okay to go, like I say, months being okay and then all of a sudden not being okay. It's okay if Christmas is hard for you. It's okay if you don't want to put a Christmas tree up. It's okay if you put it up the Christmas morning because you realize that's what you want to do. It's okay to change your rules. And it's okay to not be okay. So don't ever feel like you have to apologize. I say this to you as much as I say it to myself. You don't have to apologize for not being okay. You don't have to apologize for being sad or for having a bad day. And it doesn't just have to be through grief. It can be through anything. We're all humans. We all go through things. And sometimes, like I said, it's grief. Sometimes it's just a bad day. Sometimes, someone wasn't kind to us and we take it personally. Or sometimes, it's just a bad day. And that's okay. You don't have to apologize for having a bad day. And it's okay to just close the door and close your curtains and say, today's not the day. And you're allowed to take that time and whatever length of time that takes. And you know what? It might have been 15 years since you lost somebody, and this year's just been hard. And that's okay too. That doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. Sometimes it's just some years are harder than other years, and some days are harder than other days. And that's okay. Just know that when you're feeling that way, that you can always reach out to me. I'm always here. But also, if you're feeling that way, it's okay to seclude yourself. And if someone says, what's wrong? You can just say, it's just a bad day and I don't really want to talk about it. Or you can spill your beans. Like, you don't have to justify a bad day or grief or sadness, so long as you're not projecting anger, disrespect, unkindness to other people. And that's kind of my thing, I always try and pay it forward or spread love or give kindness